Hey everyone, hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I am announcing a readathon. Now it's a little bit last minute, a little bit slapdash, but I think it's going to be great fun. And as the title would lead you to believe, it is all about celebrating historical fiction. I'll tell you the backstory of how I got here and all of that. But ultimately, the concept, the seed of the idea is to read a historical fiction book at any point in the month of June. All you have to do is read one of them to participate. And I want you to join me. So if you're new to my channel, then hi, I'm Shelly, and I really love books and reading. And lately I've been really enjoying historical fiction. I think I've always enjoyed historical fiction. It's becoming more sharp into my consciousness how much I enjoy historical fiction. So if you would like to subscribe and you like the vibe of this channel, I would encourage you to do so, to subscribe and like the video. And without any further rambling on, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. I'll give you some brief background as to how I got here. And if you don't want to hear a backstory, then I'll hopefully have some timestamps so you can navigate this video with ease. So yesterday, I was watching Steve Donahue, as one does. Steve Donahue is a book critic and booktuber here on YouTube, and lately he has been giving us a tour of his library, and it is the library tour of the century. Steve has read a lot of books, and I found myself perking up, getting all excited about when he was pulling historical fiction off his shelves and giving his opinion. And as I mentioned, the guy has read a lot. And then he kind of offhandedly said, where is the big historical fiction event? And I was like, oh my goodness, you're right. We have a huge event for nonfiction, which is Nonfiction November. We have huge events for Jane Austen and Victorian literature with Jane Austen July and Victober. Victober is Victorian literature in October. We have an event for Garb August, and even one called June on the Range, where we celebrate, Westerns. And I was like, yeah, where is the big historical fiction event? And I was like, by golly, if we don't have one, I'm going to create one, and I will host one, because that sounds like a load of fun. And so I went to the internet and I actually just Googled historical fiction readathon. It has been done before. Actually, Katie at Books and Things popped up. Her channel popped up, as you can probably hear my dog barking in the background. Her channel popped up in my initial search, and it looks like she herself hosted a historical fiction readathon a couple of years ago during May, I think. So mine is going to be this historical, not mine necessarily, but this historical fiction readathon event is going to be hosted all throughout the month of June. Now, how do we define historical fiction? Well, according to the Walter Scott Prize, I have which is a historical fiction prize. They say that historical fiction is defined as being where the main events take place more than 60 years ago. So there's that. That's their definition. So they're saying 60 or more years ago. The Historical Novel Society said 50 years or more. It's just, there's some loose parameters as to what is historical fiction. I think Katie said like anything more than 30 or more years ago for her is like considered historical because it's before her lifetime. I tend to lean that way as well. But it just kind of depends. So, decide how you want to define historical fiction. And then, yeah, all you have to do is read one book to participate. However, for some of you who like more structure or a little bit of challenges, I have some challenges. And Katie was so nice. I reached out to her and I said, hey, can I borrow some of your prompts from when you ran this readathon? And she said, yeah, she let me. And I was like, oh my goodness. Wow, that's amazing. And I love Katie's channel, so if you don't follow her, go and follow her. She's amazing. And I'm just so glad. So if you were a part of her historical fiction readathon and you notice that some of the prompts are aligned or very similar, just know that I did have permission to borrow some of her ideas in this readathon. The first two prompts are location specific. And the first prompt is read a work of historical fiction set in the country you're from. So for me, that's the United States. I have 2 books to show you and one that I want to read. So the first one is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. It's a behemoth of a thing set all around the United States and actually places very much a setting in this novel. And then I also have Beloved by Toni Morrison, which is set in the US. I think it's set in actually Ohio, which is a state I don't often think about. A state that I do think about actually quite often is New York, and I know that Rules of Civility by Amor Towles is set in the 1930s in New York, which would be perfect for the prompt. I've yet to read this, but I've heard amazing things about it. As I was perusing my shelves just a moment ago, I found another book set in New York in the 1930s, and it is The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon, which I've heard is an incredible historical fiction book. The second prompt, also location specific, is read a work of historical fiction set in a different country to the one you're from. And so I have The Passion by Jeanette Winterson, which is set during the Napoleonic Wars and mostly in Venice. A book I want to get to, which is set in France in 1798, is The Glutton by A.K. Blakemore. If we're staying in France, then I will also mention Pope Joan by Donna Woolfolk Cross. And this is about Joan of Arc, which is set in France in the 1400s. The third prompt is read a work of historical fiction set in a new-to-you historical time period. Now for me at the time, this was a brand new time period. It's kind of niche, and it is The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. This is set in New Zealand during the New Zealand Gold Rush in 1866. Or if I wanted to travel to Rome, which would definitely be a new to me time period, it would be Memoirs of Hadrian by Marguerite Yourcenar, which I've been meaning to read for ages. Prompt number 4 is read a work of historical fiction that has a speculative or magical realistic element. A couple of them that I've already mentioned is going to be Beloved by Toni Morrison. This has definitely got some magical realism in it. And I also have The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton, or you could do Outsider by Diana Gabaldon, which has some speculative elements in that as well. Prompt 5 is read a work of historical fiction from the perspective of an ordinary person. For that, I am going to recommend actually 2 books that I've just finished. The first one is The Royal Governess by Wendy Holden. This is through the perspective of Queen Elizabeth II's governess, Marion Crawford, who really was a very ordinary person that ended up having a quite extraordinary job. My second recommendation is a book that I finished actually very recently as well, and that is James by Percival Everett. It's set in the US in the pre-Civil War South, and the story is told through the perspective of a slave. And you could say that it has some speculative elements in it as well. And it's just an extraordinary novel. I very much enjoyed it, and it would fit so well with this prompt. Next is read a work of historical fiction told from the perspective of an extraordinary person. And so I cannot pass up talking about my favorite historical fiction books of all time, and that is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel, in which we are in the head, on the shoulder of, or in the mind of Thomas Cromwell. So I have Wolf Hall, Bring Up the Bodies, and The Mirror and the Light. All 3 are excellent. Though not as extraordinary as her sister, but while we're with the Tudors, I have The Other Boleyn Girl by Philippa Gregory, in which we are following Mary Boleyn, the less known Boleyn sister. So actually, maybe this is, well, considering her role with her sister and the king, I don't think we can say that she's quite ordinary, and I like that Philippa Gregory makes her quite extraordinary. Next up, we have read a work of historical mystery or historical romance. I am thinking of the very recently passed away C.J. Sanson and his Matthew Shard Lake series. This is the first book in that series, in which we are in Tudor times, but there are definitely mysteries throughout. And this is Disillusion, the first book in that series. I've read the first 2 and they were really good. In terms of romance, you could go The English Patient by Michael Ondaatje, which is going to be like a literary romance, but definitely historical, set during, I believe, World War II. One that reads like a romance is The Other Boleyn Girl by Philippa Gregory, which is very romantic and sort of just kind of makes one swoon. soon. And then another book that would definitely be historical romance would be Diana Gabaldon's Outlander series. So maybe you've already read a couple of her Outlander books and you haven't picked up that third or fourth or even fifth book. Maybe it's a good time to pick it up. The final prompt is read a classic work of historical fiction, and what immediately sprung to mind was Romola by George Eliot, which is her only, I believe her only historical fiction novel. I also have Charles Dickens' The Tale of Two Cities, which is set during the French Revolution, and I also have War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, which is set during the Napoleonic years in Russia. So we have those three. So I'm so excited to bring this to you all. I hope you all are excited as well. I know it's kind of last minute, but I'm just going with it, and I'm just thrilled. I'm thrilled. I'm going to get my fill of historical fiction the moment June starts. Okay, so if you want to also respond to this and have a hashtag, I thought a great hashtag would be Read Historical Fiction 2024. That would just be nice and simple and a little bit shorter than Historical Fiction Readathon 2024. So it's going to be Read Historical Fiction 2024 all together, smashed together. I will hopefully have an example of it in the title or in my description box. I also have a bingo card, and you can print that out or use it on social media. Use it however you'd like. And I had a lot of fun making it. And that's it from me. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you're joining. Give me some historical fiction recommendations. I'd love to have them. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here and spending this time with me. I very much appreciate it. And I will see you all in my next one. Bye.